expect in the year that began this morning, 2021. I'm joined once again by former Connecticut Congressman Chris Shays and Democratic strategist Michael Starr Hopkins. And in this segment, we're going to focus on the second major New Year's story that will impact the entirety of 2021 and beyond, the COVID vaccine and how many people take it, as well as how quickly we can get the entire nation immunized. The incoming president and vice president have been doing their part to build confidence in the vaccine and get those numbers as high as possible. They've also been critical of the Trump administration's distribution efforts, and for good reason. If we do vaccinations right, it could lead to remarkable changes in our society, in our daily lives, and in our nation. But if we do it wrong, we could see a mass anger that I'm not sure has a historical parallel. So let's start there, gentlemen. After a year of nothing but fear, restrictions, and confusion about the virus, for the past 2 months, we've had the solution dangled in front of us, giving people hope. But I'm wondering, Michael, for how long does that hope hold? How much patience do you think the public will have if there are delays with the vaccine?
You know, I think the American public is going to give the government until the summer to really have things figured out. But one of the longest term effects of the Trump administration has been the American public's lack of trust in our government. That's the thing that I think will stick around much longer than Trump ever will. And it's why we're seeing people, reticent to take vaccines, why we're seeing people, still not believing that clustering in groups or wearing masks is something that's not just good for you, but good for your neighbors and your family and everyone around you. We really have to figure out a way to rebuild the public trust in our institutions. And I think that's what's going to be the most important thing over the next 6 months.
Yeah, Chris, I can't imagine. I mean, we've seen some of these reopen protests. People want to return to normal, but so many more people in the U.S. have sort of abided by the rules and been sort of patiently waiting. If they get the feeling like they're being dangled here and that they've been given the old okie doke, there could be a lot of upset in this country.
Well, first off, isn't it amazing that with nearly 350,000 deaths, people aren't angry? I'm angry. Now, I may be a little different on this issue, but I care less about convincing some people to take the vaccine, because right now there's so many people that are willing to take it. And by the time of the summer, if some people don't want the vaccine, shame on them. But I think by then they'll say, I want it too. So rather than convincing someone right now who doesn't want to take the vaccine to take it now in front of someone who's willing and eager to take the vaccine, frankly, it doesn't make much sense to me.
I'm actually less worried about that, Chris, than I am about the people who want to take the vaccine but can't get access to it. And Michael, I can only imagine the blame game should that happen. If it's January 1st and it's obvious that we're having distribution problems, that's clearly all on Trump. And by the way, I can't believe that Trump would bungle the distribution of the vaccine when he puts so much importance behind it. But if the breaking point is April 1st or June 1st, that could be a huge problem for Joe Biden, even if he's just trying to do triage on the setup that he inherited from Trump.
That's true, and I would really hope and pray that the people who are in the Trump administration now are doing everything they can to put Joe Biden in the position to be able to get this vaccine rolled out and get every American who wants to get the vaccine that their shot. But I worry that they're not. And I worry that specifically Americans who get that first shot are going to get complacent in between getting that second shot. When they start to see people of higher income or start to hear rumors and things across different cable news networks, that they are going to become angry and they are going to decide, not to do it or to do something illogical. And so I think we really, as leaders across all spectrums, whether it be politically, ideologically, or backgrounds, we've got to figure out a way to talk to people, to talk to our neighbors, talk to our faith leaders, people in our churches, and really let them know that we've got to do this together because there's no other way.
I want to flip the perspective at this point. Now let's assume that the vaccine is successful and distributed successfully. This could be an unprecedented spark for changes, our own personal behaviors and priorities, our society, even our public policies. I spoke last night on New Year's Eve with a historian looking for similar moments when the entire nation was sort of released from mass restrictions and shared pain. We talked about the Depression and World War II, and emerging from both changed people and changed the nation with a focus on improving our lives and the quality of lives. I'm wondering if you think we could see a similar response post-COVID in 2021.
My big concern is that we are faced with this pandemic, but we may have another one in a year from now or 2 years from now. So My biggest prayer, and I say this to you, Michael, as well, my biggest prayer is that the Biden administration focuses on future threats. If we don't, then we have failed to learn an important lesson.
That's a fantastic point, Chris, because that certainly would be a proactive response to what we've all gone through. And Michael, looking back, coming out of the Depression in the 30s, we started to see the start of the safety net as people were concerned about what happened to their fellow Americans at the height of the Depression. Social Security and welfare sprang out of that. COVID speaks to issues like health care and labor and racial issues, among others. An obvious starting point would be health care. COVID exposed so many flaws in our system. Is it the kind of thing that people might emerge from COVID and say, we need to make these changes we need the government to help improve our quality of life?
Absolutely. I think first we're going to have a conversation about a basic living wage and access to universal health care. But at a really 30,000-foot view, we have to have a conversation about our social contract, because I think more than anything else, this event, this last year, has showed us that our social contract's broken. We're supposed to look out for each other. We're supposed to take care of each other, even when it's difficult, even when we don't agree. We saw that after 9/11. We saw that rallying around the flag and rallying around each other. We saw it at the beginning of this when people stood outside and banged pots and pans in New York. But we don't see that anymore. And so I think there has to be a national dialogue about, one, what broke down, and two, how we repair our country, because this can't continue. We can't continue to just demagogue each other every day.
Chris, let me ask for your response to that, and if you see both an opportunity here and the potential willingness for our national leaders to actually invest in that sort of cooperative effort.
Well, you know, the word investment is an interesting concept. My big fear is, first off, Michael's right. We need to address those issues, but we can't address those issues and ask for future generations to pay for it. What I've noticed in the last 20 years is that the states will give benefits to their state employees and cities will give benefit to their cities' employees, but they won't fund it. They just created a huge unfunded liability. So the debts that states have and the debt that the federal government has is extraordinary. And what really concerns me is we deficit spent when times were good, which is crazy. And now we need to deficit spend, but we have such a huge backlog of debt when times were good when we deficit spend. So if how we pay for all of this isn't part of that discussion, then we've just screwed future generations.
And no doubt that will certainly be a part of these debates as we go forward in 2021. Gentlemen, I really appreciate you joining me for this. Chris Shays, former Republican congressman from Connecticut, Michael Starr Hopkins, Democratic strategist who served on the presidential campaigns of both Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. Gentlemen, happy